Hey, this is Michael Quinn Sullivan. I am coming to you live from here at the border in El Paso, just south of El Paso, here in Juarez. Looking across the border, across the border behind me, you see a large encampment that's been put in place by the Border Patrol, where illegal aliens are coming through. You're literally right now watching. Walker's making sure you can see this. You just had 4 guys illegally cross into the United States. There's another one coming down from the Mexico side carrying bottles of water, another one following behind him, and they are now going across over to this other side, where you see that Governor Greg Abbott made a big deal about putting in razor wire and reinforcing this area, and as you can tell, the illegal aliens have simply just moved the razor wire out of the way, and they are coming and going freely into this holding area. This holding area, it should be noted, is one of many around the here along the border in the El Paso area, where illegal aliens have been flooding into. Some of them are open, like this one. Some of them are not yet open. Earlier today, as my producer Walker York and I were driving along the border, what we kept seeing were folks, kind of crossing the river, dashing across, only to find that there was, only Border Patrol there, and not kind of porta potties and things. So they just kind of would then move on down the river, but running. They were running not because they were being chased, I would suggest to you, but instead they were running because they know that there are thousands coming behind them. It seems like, and we don't know this, we have not been able to find anyone to confirm this, but that Border Patrol is just kind of letting these holding areas fill up. Now, I want to be very clear about this. There are Border Patrol officials in this holding area. There are Army National Guard, there's Army personnel in these areas, and they are literally in full view of the illegals. We're about to see 2 more guys crossing, 1 or 2 more guys crossing. They're kind of going back and forth, getting supplies, getting things. And this is all happening in full view of federal officials. You're literally watching, you right now, sitting at home, are watching the same thing U.S. government officials and military officials will see, which is people just violating the law without any consequence. In fact, not only not without consequence, but once they get across the border, they're not being told to go home. They are being allowed into this to break into this holding area, and they're in that holding area. They are waiting for 15 passenger vans that will take them on into processing areas there in El Paso. What was very troubling last night, Walker York and I were again kind of doing the same kind of traveling along the border, but on the U.S. side, and what we saw there at one of these holding areas, we got some drone footage we'll be sharing with you tomorrow on The Headline with Brandon Waltons. And so if you'll watch The Headline, I'll be filing a report from here. All of this is very important. The drone footage, so you can see the kinds of numbers we're talking about. Right now, this camera angle doesn't exactly do it justice. The sheer number of people who are already in there and the number who can be in there, and remembering these kind of holding pins, these holding areas are up and down the border. All of this is significant because Title 42 is expiring here as we're standing here in about 12 hours, at about 11 p.m. Texas time, Central Texas time, 10 p.m. Here in El Paso, midnight on the East Coast. Title 42 expires. What's been very striking to me is in conversations with some of these different folks, I've had a number of them actually by name reference Mayorkas and reference Biden. What they are saying is that Mayorkas and Biden are going to be opening those gates. You see the gates there, kind of where these groups of folks are kind of queued up in front of. They're just going to, what they're being told, what they are hearing on this side of the border is that those gates will be opened at 10 p.m. That these gates will be tonight here in El Paso at 11 p.m. In the rest of Texas and at midnight Eastern time. That these gates will be opened and they can just walk on in. I don't know if that's true. You and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they're being told. And therefore, when you see these folks like Walker York and I have seen all day today, these folks running along the river, it is because they want to make sure they're inside this holding area when the gates open up. I want to go back to talking about the problem of the razor wire. Mentioned a moment ago. On the one hand, I would say, I think Governor Abbott finally decided to do the right thing as it relates to putting more force on the border. Why they weren't doing that before now, and instead using Operation Lone Star as kind of a photo op. Now they're actually doing serious things like putting up razor wire. But again, razor wire is not enough. As you can see, people just kind of coming in and out. They made a nice little gate for themselves. So it's made kind of a mockery of the alleged security, particularly because there are no consequences. You don't have, kind of off beyond that. You see the military vehicles, you see Border Patrol vehicles, and none of those personnel are doing anything about this. None of them are coming up and telling them to turn around and go home. Again, we're standing here watching these folks break the law. We're watching the invasion, kind of at this moment, a slow motion invasion, but an invasion nonetheless. Thousands and thousands of people coming across the border with thousands and thousands more. And of course, what we are seeing here in Plano, here in El Paso, what we are seeing here in Juarez is just a small fraction of what others are reporting up and down the Rio Grande River, with the Biden administration having decided that it's really not their intention to actually secure the borders of the United States. We're going to continue to be watching this situation. We're going to continue to be reporting from here. Again, I hope that you'll check out the headline in the morning so you can see some of this exclusive drone footage that Walker York was able to capture last night. As we're watching this, again, we're watching right now as another, 3 or 4 people are going across the border, including a young child. Now they're officially illegal aliens based on where the border lines are. They have now illegally crossed into the United States. They're going to make their way here along the Cam. And here you've got another 4 guys running across the border, making their way along now this little thin stretch of the Rio Grande River, where they will enter through that broken razor wire, where the fence has been cut. Now, you will know that beyond that fence, of course, this no man's land of the border area, there is the so-called Trump border wall, the big border barrier. That's a lot harder to break, obviously. But again, once you are past the river, you're in the United States. You have now, these individuals have broken our laws. They have entered our country illegally, and nothing's being done about it. In fact, not only is nothing being done about it, but in fact, they're coming across and knowing that once there, they're not being sent away. They're not being turned back. They're not being told to go home. They're not being repelled. Nothing. There are no negative consequences. Instead, they're queuing up. They're sending friends back across the river to get pizza. They're hanging out here, just ready for. They got porta potties set up. You've got the non-potable water truck coming to clear out the porta potties, make them a little more useful for the day. You've got these folks coming across the border without any consequences whatsoever, and they know that here in a few hours, once this holding area has kind of reached its set point, Border Patrol officials will begin loading up 15 passenger vans and bringing those folks further into El Paso and into the United States. They will be handed their little notices to appear and other things, but other than that, there are not any consequences that are in evidence for the men and women who are illegally crossing the border into the United States ahead of the expiration of Title 42 later this evening. Again, we are here live in Juarez, Mexico. We are just south of El Paso. We're in Mexico, right here on the border, literally on the border, with the little dribble of the Rio Grande River coming through, watching as individuals are just without any consequence, either in small groups or in large groups, making their way across the across the border into these holding areas that have been set up by Border Patrol to hold them in place until they kind of reach a critical mass and they start busting them further into the country. There is no consequences, as I've noted already here today, no consequences for those folks who are illegally crossing into the country. They're being allowed to enter the country in full view. It's broad daylight, in full view of the Border Patrol officials and other and military personnel. We see a guy with a clipboard about to run across the river now. It's as if we're at a concert and folks are just waiting in line to get their tickets. There is no one seems even the least bit guilty about the actions they're taking in contradiction to U.S. sovereignty and U.S. law. I think I might have already mentioned, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself here, but as Walker York, my producer, and I have been driving along the border this morning, what we have noticed have been a large number of these folks who will go from holding area to holding area, and there are a number of them that we have come across here along the border, and you find them, they get to it and there's not an opening in the fence, there's no one there, and so they just keep moving until they find one they can get into. And they're not running because they're being chased. It's not like these are people escaping the evil cartels. These aren't people who are escaping political oppression. The Soviet KGB is coming after them or something. They're trying to jump through the embassy gates. No, they're running because they know what's behind them, which is there are thousands of more people coming behind them. The reports that we have heard from the mayor of El Paso, from other border officials, is you're talking about something in the neighborhood of 10 to 25,000 people here in Juarez alone waiting to come across into the United States illegally here over the next 12 to 24 hours. We're going to continue to monitor this situation. We will probably go live again today, and then tomorrow morning on The Headline, I hope you will join me and Brandon Waltons. Brandon Waltons has a special guest tomorrow, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, and then I'll be filing a report from here in Mexico, providing some of that footage and other photographs that you can see to better put into context the expiration of Title 42 and what it means for us as Texans and as Americans. So for now, I'm going to sign off. Really appreciate you joining us today, and we will keep you updated at TexasScorecard.com.